Kintsugi Heroes brings you the following flood resilience stories in partnership with Singleton Neighbourhood Centre and grant funding from the Hunter New England and Central Coast Primary Health Network. To find out more about this podcast, head to kintsugiheroes.com.au. On July 6th, 2022, the worst flood in 70 years hit the town of Broke and the surrounding Hunter Valley region. The community is still recovering from the trauma the floods brought, destroying their homes and their livelihoods. In this special limited series of Kintsugi Heroes, John Millam sits down with the community who suffered as a result of the floods and gives them space to share their adversity, resilience, and compassion. It's only through connection and empathy that there can be a path to recovery. These are stories of trauma and can be confronting. If you find they have a triggering effect, please reach out to someone who can help keep you safe. Now listen in as John takes you beyond the deluge with Kintsugi Heroes.
So, afternoon, folks. Today, it's another Kintsugi Heroes story of the floods from the Broke Village and surrounds. And today we're talking to Leith Moonen, and Leith has got quite a story from 6th of July, but Leith and his partner Carina, that's right, mate?
Yeah.
And you guys were caught up in quite a dramatic fashion in the floods. And
it wasn't fun.
No, and we'll get a chance to talk about that. But maybe we start, Leith, with a bit of background about what took you to the area, and we're talking about Broke and, of course, your village, which is Warkworth, which you mentioned was a little bit out of the way and not part of a hub of activity, but you were heavily impacted on flood day. So tell us a little bit about your family and leading up to that day, mate. What's your story?
So we've lived at Warkworth for around 20 odd years. I believe it was mid to late 2000. We moved out there into the old schoolhouse, it's an old rural school. It closed down in around 1997. It was built in around 1859, I believe. So we lived there for quite some time. There was myself, my wife Carina, and my son Sean. Sean's no longer at home. He now, luckily for him, lives over at Nelson's Bay there, so he's got himself a good spot there. So we've been there a long time. I've spent a lot of time in the riverbed there, as you do when you've got a young fella growing up. You spend a lot of time down there just
fish and explore,
fish, all that sort of stuff, John.
Mm.
And then as he got older, he'd go off and do it himself down there. So we actually know the river quite well. We've watched it flood numerous times.
Yeah.
We've watched it be in drought where I could see every stick that was in the riverbed up till recently. And there's a few things I've noticed with the river and what it does prior to flood. And what I've noticed is it will tend to sit at a higher level for quite some time leading up to it. Really, the indicators are there for people to take notice. I didn't. I just thought, it's going to be another come into the park and then it'll go down. It's done it many times since we lived there. It's something we're used to.
Because it's not an unusual thing for a fairly low-scale flood to go through that creek, is it?
Exactly. I'm actually led to believe that the Wollombi Brook is one of the fastest flowing singing bed riverbeds in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, I do not know if that's true. I actually heard that from a mate who got it from his dad and their long-term Broke residents.
Right.
So there's a lot of local knowledge comes into it, and I've seen it flow very fast. I've seen it flow very slow in flow. But the indicator is that it will actually sit around a metre higher than normal, and it's done this in every flooding in history that I can find. I've got records dating back to 1908 for that river on our monitor.
Right.
And you see the trend. It will sit at a metre higher for around 6 months prior to these flood events. If it's not sitting at that level, the water table's nice and low, so it sort of tends to soak in pretty quick. As we all know, there was a lot of rain leading up to this, which was after a drought as well. We had some quite severe floods prior to it, but I think the difference was with the rain events we'd had and the storms we'd had leading up to it, a lot of the gullies out in the mountains had been opened up. So there was no restriction for the water flow coming out of the mountains, and it came out a lot faster than they thought. But it also came out timed perfect for the right thing to happen for the flow, not for us.
So just on that, having talked to a lot of people about the nature of this flood, which was both, the flooding was not unexpected, but this flood was unexpected in its severity and its speed. Do you think people talk about how this area, that Wollombi and Broke river systems are catchments, big catchments for the whole valley?
It is a big catchment. It's you're looking at water that starts off at the back of the Central Coast up on Mangrove Mountain.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, it's I'll just get I'll leap a little bit forward here. Is that the night we were actually flooded out of home, one of the, I believe he worked for New South Wales Roads, I'm not sure, Transport for New South Wales, and his job was to go around and actually shut the roads off as they flooded. And he pulls up and he's gone, "Are you people right?" And I've gone, "Yeah, mate, we're pretty good." I said, "But I don't have a great deal of water." So he reaches around and he grabs it was a carton of water and he hands it to me. And I said, "Oh, mate," I said, "that's got to be a bit of a sick joke, doesn't it?" He's looked at me funny and I've gone, "Oh, it's okay, mate." I said, "Where do you think all this water came from?" And what he actually handed me was it was some Mangrove Mountain Central Coast water company. And we just stood there laughing like, really didn't expect too much of it because we were sort of still in a bit of shock as to what was going on around us.
Yeah.
And here we were 50 metres from home on a hill, camped on the side of the road, and this bloke gives me this water. It's possibly around midnight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a big catchment.
Yeah. And your family is not unfamiliar with that. Like you've had you've had a relationship with the water and you're in the area.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time down there. It's a really nice river. It's very healthy. A lot of people will look at it and go, "Oh, there's no water flow," but it's only where they can see, like either side of the bridge, which is right next to our house on the Gold Highway, which is the cockfighters crossing on the Gold Highway. If you look down, you actually can't see a great deal of water. You'll see a little stream either side, and that's it. But what you're looking at is where historical crossings have been. So those road crossings were there, and they've actually put a lot of gravel into the riverbed there. So it looks like there's nothing, but if you go 50 metres either side of that, there's some really good holes. And where you look at this, it's predominantly sand, but there's a lot of rock. There's a lot of different materials in the bed. So when it floods like this, it doesn't change a lot where I live. You look in other places where it is predominantly sand, it does change, it moves. I've seen photos downstream from our house from, I believe, the 1950s, and it's very wide and open. And that was after 2 periods of flooding, the 49 flood and the 55 flood. And what they actually did was they opened up the channel very wide. That's not healthy for a riverbed. It leads to a lot of erosion. You lose a lot of the bank. It's now at a point where it's starting to recover. There's vegetation on the banks, and it's held together really well. And on that, how it's held together is the water path directly down from our house, which is about 100 metres away. It hasn't changed. It doesn't look any different, really. There's a few logs and whatnot sticking up in the trees, which sort of give evidence of a flood. Besides that, you look at it and you honestly will not think anything's happened down there. It looks exactly the same.
So it's really interesting. So before we talk about the details of the flood, tell us about how your relationship. So you've lived in a heritage schoolhouse in a beautiful part of the world,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. What was life like for you? What's the best thing about being in that area?
Honestly, look, I can go down the creek, I can take a fish, I can just go for a walk along the creek. It's one of those places where you can just go and sit down and take in the birds and all the nature. There's quite a lot of wildlife around there, and I like to just go and sit down there sometimes. A wise man once walked past me while I was fishing, and it was really poor weather. And he said to me, young fella, he's gone, it's not a really good day for fishing. I was not having a really good day. I'd had a bit going on. And I looked at this bloke and I said, look, mate, I said, sometimes fishing is not about catching fish.
Yeah.
And he just smiled and nodded and off he wandered. And everybody's idea of doing something's different. My idea sometimes is just to go and sit down there and take a moment for myself. Prior to that, look, we were quite comfortable. We had plans. We were starting to downsize a lot of stuff and get rid of a lot of stuff anyway, and just had to declutter from living in one place for 20 odd years.
Yeah.
You do tend to accumulate a lot of stuff from
Yeah.
people going, I've got this, do you need it? It's like, oh, yeah, okay. So, you tend to take on stuff you don't need. So we'd started looking at downsizing anyway. We're no spring chickens anymore. We had plans for the future. We were quite comfortable and complacent. Besides, my wife had a workplace injury, so she was actually currently on workers' comp. That was really the only negative at the time.
Mm.
And, then we got to Christmas Day 2021. Yeah, same thing. Everything's going along quite well. And then, once again, I was having one of those days where just nothing went to plan. I was trying to build stuff in the shed, and everything I went to do just went wrong. So I bugger it. I'll go ring my old man, and I'll have a scotch on the phone with him. And just as I was walking out the shed, I actually looked down the road, and I could see some lights coming down the road. Well, that's a bit odd on Christmas Day. I mean, quite bright lights. And I thought, oh, this doesn't look too good. So I sort of, something told me to just stay in the shed. So I just sat down, had a, another little moment. And next thing, my wife comes walking home. She said, it's the police at the gate. And they were there to tell me my father had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we weren't the last to know, but other people knew before me. So, that was just another period of things not going to plan. After that, nothing in life went to plan. We're now, whatever it is now, 2.5 years after the flood, or 2 years after it, and still nothing's going to plan.
Mm.
Everything I went to do, something would go wrong. Even now, I go to fix something in the shed, and I go, I don't own that tool anymore to do this job.
Yeah.
And there's a few other things that went on in between. Like I also lost my little dog who was about to turn 20 on, I think it was Valentine's Day 2022. She would have turned 20. And so we lost her. And then we've gone, oh, bugger, it's going to crappy. Let's celebrate Christmas in July, my wife said. So I've gone, I'm in for that. And she ran it through the whole family. Everybody was all keen to have a Christmas in July. And then July happened.
Yeah.
Once again, another case of stuff not going to plan. I think that's the thing with getting comfortable. You get a little complacent, I think, and you think everything's going great. Let's just keep going down this path, and then chaos comes in.
Yeah. So chaos in the form for those listening, as you pointed out, right, it had been raining and quite heavily at times, right? So, but that's not.
We didn't get a great deal of rain.
Right.
Where we live, it did not rain a great deal. It was just constant drizzle for about 3 to 4 months.
Right.
It
So
was
the water table was up, and
it was up.
Yeah.
So when the water table's up, the water can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So it came out of the mountains really fast, and a lot faster than they expected.
Yeah. So the rain event, early July, so 6th of July, you've been told, right? So you as you said, floods have come and gone, and they've been they've all been pretty good. So were you prepared for a flood event that turned out to be significantly more larger and more impactful than previously?
No, not at all. With the amount of rain we had, I'm looking at it, I'm going, I've seen this before, I've seen it 100 times. It's going to come into the park, and then it's going to dissipate away like it always does. The day prior to it, I'd been at a mate's place, had a beer, and I got walked out. I said, oh, catch it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I got home, and I thought, I'd better go down and have a look at it. So I wanted the 100 or so metres down the creek. It is a river, but I call it a creek.
Yeah. I think
It
it's
originally
named
was.
Creek, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Wallenbuck Creek.
Brook, or Cockfighters Creek.
Yeah.
I'll get there in a moment. There's quite an amusing little story about that. So I walked down, I had a look. It was sitting at about 6 metres, which is still in the bank. I was still on top of the bank, and I'm watching the water flow. I thought, it just looks a little different. It was flowing, just not like it normally did. I thought, I'll keep an eye on that. So I ducked back up the house, had dinner. And then I'd go and check it every now and then. I thought, look out, it's up to the March flood level, which was, I believe, around 8.4 metres in the March.
Yeah.
8.4 metres, it was maybe 10 to 15 metres off the back fence at that point. Nothing to worry about because it's still got quite a rise to get up to the actual yard. So, that was the March level. And I watched this river, and it was, when rivers normally peak when they're in flood, they'll ebb in and out. And I watched this thing, and I'm watching it. So I stood there for about half an hour, and I'm watching it at the March level, and it's coming in and out, a couple of inches at a time. I thought, yep, it's peaked. So I went back up inside. I could still hear the water rushing outside as it rushed through the grass out in the front park. And I started checking on it sort of hourly. And the first couple of hours, it sort of didn't really do much. It sort of sat around that March flood level. It wasn't till maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. I went and had one last look at it. I was quite confident it peaked, but it had peaked higher. And what I didn't realise, these were the rushings of all the different waters gathering together and coming down. Now, I think it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, might have been the last time I looked at it. I thought, yep, we're good. I'm going to bed. Didn't sleep very well still because I still had to go to work the next day. And I got there, I've looked at it. It's all good. Off I go. And my alarm went off. I thought, I can hear something. What it was that as the water had come up higher, it got into some longer grass, and I could actually hear it flattening the longer grass.
Wow.
And as I walked out there, I've gone, this is not good. It had risen about another 2 metres.
Wow.
In about a 2-hour period. That was the biggest rush and biggest rise I've ever seen in that riverbed ever.
Yeah.
And that was about the point it had started coming in the back gate. I started running around then trying to save stuff in sheds. And I went to the first shed that was starting to take water, which is my main sort of workshop, which is a 20-foot container. In that container, I've got a lot of tooling. I collect vintage hobby lathes. So I've got some, quite rare old small ones there from 1920s jewellers' watches, which are no longer than 6 inches long, to, some good size ones. So I had some really good tooling. And anyway, so I'm running around in that shed and I'm going, I can't save anything here. So I was just putting stuff up as high as I could. And I shut the container and I stepped out of the container in ankle-deep water. And I'm like, this is really not good. So I've gone to the next shed, which was at this point quite dry. The water was starting to enter that shed, so I shut that one as well. And I thought, well, the other one down the back, it's gone. So that was the 3 sheds full of water. So I then turned my attention to the house, and by this time, my wife was still in bed. At this point, I didn't want to bother her over nothing. And at one point, I actually went and woke her up, and I said, look, you're going to have to get up. I might suggest you go and have yourself a cup of coffee and a shower. You're probably not going to get one for a couple of days. And she woke up bleary-eyed and looked at me and said, no, it'll be fine. I said, you might want to take a look out the window. And at this point, you could look out our bedroom window and the water was about 30 metres away and just hitting the tar on the road out the front. And she's looked at it. She still thought we'd be fine. And I'm going, you need to go and have a coffee and a shower now. So she went and did that, and I'm running around sort of trying to put stuff high in the house. And a lot of it was to sort of no avail. It's hard. It's a hard thing. You know the water's coming. You don't know where it's going to stop.
Yeah.
But it was almost like it was something helping me. something guided me. I don't know what it was, John. It was weird as buggery, right? So here I am, I'm going around, I'm putting stuff at a particular height. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just did. I've gone, this is the height. So I'm going around bookshelves and I'm going, oh, there's photo albums. And I put them on the next shelf up. And funnily enough, that's about the height it went through the house. So it went through the house about knee deep.
Right.
So it ended up going through. You know, I'll go back a little bit shortly, but there was just something guiding me and telling me to put stuff at this height.
So did those things that you put up that you went through, were they precious things or things that you saw, or what was happening?
To be honest, it was a blur, but there was just something telling me I had to put this stuff. Yes, some of it was treasures. I got most of it. There was even a chest next to our bed, which I don't know how I managed, but I managed to lift it up onto the bed by myself. There's so much stuff I moved, and I got no idea how I did it. It just happened.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, look, I go back a little bit now, like as the water was coming in, there's certain things that keep taking you back every time.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it.
So you get triggered by. Yeah.
Even leading up to this discussion we're having now, I started having dreams again about it.
Wow.
Some of them are nothing, and other ones like I had one the other night where I was running around trying to save everything, and I couldn't because we were in a washing machine.
Right.
And I don't know. It's one of them things in dreams. Like even the car was in there. It's weird the things you see and hear, and it's sights and sounds and what will trigger these things. It's a hard one. The triggers, like even the recent flooding it's still going on now in WA and whatnot. We've had flooding in Queensland, flooding in Victoria recently. I see that stuff now, and I want to be able to help these people. I want to be able to go and go, it's okay. You'll get through this. I don't know how to do that. My thoughts are with all of those people. I know what it's like. I've been there. I've been through it. There is a way out. It's how you get there is the thing. First thing when I saw the Victorian floods recently was another trigger point. And that's when the dream started again, was then. And I still hear the gurgling sound sometimes the night time.
Wow.
When floodwaters come across the ground, it displaces the air in there. So any air pocket gets filled up and it bubbles out. And it's like the ground boils.
Wow.
It's a weird thing. When I was running around the house trying to get stuff out, I was hearing this come through the floor. The floor would be, I guess, knee high. You could hear it resonating as it came up, approaching the floorboards underneath.
Yeah.
And as it got to the floorboards, it was a really weird sensation because what it did was it actually lifted the carpet and the material under the carpet, whatever it is, it lifted that as well. So as I'm walking around, it became like a trampoline.
So you're bouncing around on the...
Yeah, and it sounded like it was boiling underneath the floor. And that sound sat with me for a long time. It took about 6 or 8 months for that sound to actually leave me every night time. I'd wake up hearing it. I'd hear it in my sleep. Sometimes I'd only have to hear that noise somewhere else and it would just trigger it and it takes it straight back there.
So when you're hearing that noise, right? What is the feeling? What's going on for you? What do you when you are taken back to that moment? What's the feeling?
It's almost outright panic. You can't describe it. I'll do my best to, because I think people need to understand that this is what it actually does to people in the long term. So now if I smell a particular smell or I hear something, it comes straight back. It puts you right back in there of that when I was speaking to you on the phone the other day, you actually mentioned the word control, and you bang on. Any feeling of control you have is gone. You're at the mercy of whatever's coming at you. And with floods, you don't know where it's going to stop. It's really hard. And sometimes it can put you in a pretty dark place again. And even just looking back at some of the photos, I can look at the photo and I can almost describe to you what it smelt like and what it sounded like at that particular time. And it's hard to get through.
Yeah.
And some of I will send you a heap of photos and whatnot, and hopefully get some video to you of the water coming through. And you will actually hear in some of the video the bubbling. At one point there, I walked through into the laundry. The laundry it actually sits lower than the rest of the floor in the house, so it actually got inundated first. And when it went through the laundry, there was like a little crack in the concrete, and I believe there's some pipe work underneath there, and all you could hear was the water displacing the air out of there. And it was just bubbling, and a different bubbling to the bubbling that was coming out of the ground. Once again, it's hard to think back and then try and put it into words.
Right.
But the sounds do trigger things in people, as with any like that happens to somebody. There's memories, there's sights, there's sounds that trigger things. And I to me found it's the sound of that bubbling really got me a lot, and some particular smells.
Wow.
So even now, it's we haven't had a great deal of rain since, nothing really to report. So every now and then you will get a patch of rain, and I don't know if it just wets the right part of the ground, but all of a sudden you get that smell again, and it smells like that floodwater. Unfortunately for us, it was not just floodwater. As the floodwater went across the top of the septic, it actually displaced the entire contents of the septic through the house. So we had a house full of raw sewage, which contaminated everything in the house. And on that, one word of advice I would like to offer, even if it's canned goods, throw it away.
Yeah.
It's you don't know what's been on it. You don't know. Luckily for us, it was our shit. I can deal with my own crap. I do feel a bit for the people that broke. They had to deal with everybody else's crap floating around.
Yeah.
And we were unsure what to do. There's nobody coming around handing you a brochure going, here's what you need to do. Here's the magic brochure that's going to fix you. But that's the first thing, any canned goods, any food in your cupboard, just throw it. You can replace it. That's one of those things. There's stuff I tried to save and stuff I didn't bother. But it was, we actually did not find out till 2 weeks after the flood that it was contaminated so bad with E. coli. And we'd still been living in the house for that 2 weeks.
So let's check in. So the 6th of July, you've tracked the water all night. You've gone to bed thinking it might be all right. You've woken up and suddenly it's come in. It's rushed into your house. So you've run around and you've put stuff up as high as you can, or moved what you can. You've got to that point. What did you do? Like, because there, the water's knee deep through your house. Some areas are higher. You've mentioned that it's actually contaminated with raw sewage, and you've done what you can putting stuff up. What's happening now? What you're there? What do you do after that? At that point,
it became a case of what else can I get in there and save? I was more than willing to go in there up until the point that I couldn't swim in there anymore. Quite foolish, but there was the only assistance we received was from some community people and a couple of stubborn mates who drove out to help out. And
because you're isolated, aren't you? You're like the area is locked down with floods happening all around you as well. Yeah,
exactly. Like the main road to town was still open, but it wasn't going to be open for much longer. Bulga was already cut off from floodwaters across the Putty Road, so we couldn't go to Boulder. We couldn't go to Jerry's Plains because the Hunter River had blocked the Golden Highway.
Wow.
The only road at this point open was the road to town, into Silton. And from advice and what I've been hearing from people on the road who were pulling up, telling me what was going on, they were telling me it wasn't long before that road was going to be closed as well. And even then, like, we would have been out of the frying pan and into the fire potentially because we didn't know what was going to happen to Silton. And that's, that's a main driver as to why we chose to camp on the side of the road. We also had the dog, and we were going, she's not a social dog. She lives on the lounge.
Did you have any, do you have any communication to know what other people were doing apart from just people stopping or what?
We had none. We saw no emergency services. We had nothing. We had no information besides this water's in our house now, and we're on the side of the road. We'd already saved what we could. We'd been back in to sort of waist deep water and push my old WB1 ton of ute out. We'd been back in and got my bike out of the house. And that was a little bit of an odd story in itself. The only people that showed up to help were, believe it or not, our water delivery drivers who, as they pulled up, I might have used some swear words and told them to go away. We do not need any water, thank you. That's a very toned down version of what I said. These blokes actually went above and beyond. They went out in the paddock across the road. One of the neighbours, he'd already gone to town and evacuated with his young son, put his horses in what he believed to be a safe paddock with a high point.
Right.
Well, the silly horses and one goat decided they were going to go to a mound in the middle of the paddock, which was very soon afterwards totally surrounded by water. Now, these blokes pulled up and they saw this and they were straight out in that paddock. One of them had no shoes on in a paddock full of tiger pear and prickly pear and catheads.
Wow.
And they're out there saving these horses and the goat. And at one point, they almost got them out, and then the lead horse let go and off he'd go back to the mound. So off they traipse the 50-odd metres back to this mound to lead them off again. And where they went past where we were standing watching this, as they went through there, they were neck deep in water leading horses.
Wow.
So they got these horses to safety up on the hill, and then they turned their attention to helping us. And I had to take my hat off these blokes, absolute champions. No one asked them to help. They just showed up and did it. And these are young local blokes, and they're renowned for it. Something goes wrong, they're there helping out. They even pestered us all night by coming back and making sure we were okay.
Wow.
And that's the sort of community spirit that got us through it. And I hate to say this, I'd love to be able to sit here thanking emergency services for what they did, but I can't, John. I can't. They didn't help us. And it wasn't, we never saw anybody from any emergency services until 2 weeks after the flood. And it took, for me, I was having a bit of a reminisce and a little moment, so I thought, I'd best get on here. So I jumped on the old Facebook thing. I think family and friends that have been out helped. And I ended up with, unfortunately, in our case, I cannot help any of the emergency services as we still not have seen them.
Right.
And one of my friends saw this, who is a part of the Bulga Community Centre. And next thing we had help everywhere.
Wow.
Your phone's ringing, and it's like people are showing up. It's like, oh, wow. We still hadn't eaten properly.
Yeah.
We were living on stuff like baked beans and whatnot. And it was only that for some reason, when we evacuated, I chucked a couple of cans of baked beans and sausages and bacon in. Thought, we're going to have to eat something. But besides that, we had no supplies. We had nothing. It was all wet or gone. Even medication. Our medication was gone.
Wow.
That's the sort of stuff that you need in a nutshell. You've got to have that stuff.
So for 2 weeks, sorry, mate, for 2 weeks, you were camping on the side of the road. The water went down, right? So when did the house become, free of water?
Well, it was in and out that quick. It was like a tide. So it entered the house. Look, I'm not real sure what time it was. It was sometime prior to lunch, but it first entered the house. And it would have been around 11 a.m. the next day. It was back down to the floorboards again, and I was straight back in. And I went straight back in, so I waded across the yard and went back into the house. And as I opened the back door, it was weird. So I opened the back screen door, I opened the back door, and all of a sudden all this stuff started flowing out of the house. It's like, oh, there goes the shampoo and conditioner, there goes the pills, there goes this, there goes that, oh, there goes a piece of paper. And we've got a photo somewhere of a piece of paper that was under our bed. It somehow ended up on the outside of the screen of the back screen door. Now, it had to get through 1, 2, 3, 4 closed doors to get to there. So when I left, I actually closed every door in the house. And here's this little piece of paper, and it was a card to my wife from, she used to work at preschool. So I think it was from one of her co-workers, like a Christmassy thing. And here it was, just perched up between the mesh of the screen and the actual fly screen material. But somehow it was on the outside. I don't know how it got there. I can't explain that. I'm also a drummer, so I have drumsticks everywhere. There was even drumsticks that I know were under one bed or in a particular. I found this stuff in different rooms, and I don't know what went on in there while it was going on, but something was certainly going on. It's really odd to go, I know that was there. Why is it here? But as I walked into the house, though, I'll just go back to that. So I walked into the house and I'm going, this actually doesn't look too bad. We're really lucky. And I started looking around and going, I think I can save most of this. And so this was on day one. We just went mad. So I got a bucket and I'm basically walking to the front door and I'm just reaching down into the flood water and dipping the bucket in and then just going and bucket and mud, because we had no power. So I'm bucketing mud off stuff and wandering around. I had no shoes on at this point. Yeah. It wasn't mud. Yeah, some of those chunky ones that you pull out with your bare hands and you go, that doesn't feel like mud. It's not a good feeling to know that that's what it actually was I was cleaning out. And once we realised that that's what had contaminated everything, we basically gone, we need to save a roof over our head. We don't own this place. We rent it. We have done for many years. Basically, we threw all our stuff out the front. We sort of saved the bed. So we had a bed to sleep on. And then I actually rang our awesome real estate agent. And I said, look, this is where we're at. This is how we've been impacted. Do you mind if I start ripping the carpet up? So away we went. Big bits of carpet, and by crikey, it was heavy. They actually, as soon as the road was open, they sent a labourer out to help me. So I was going sort of 24 hours a day. At this point, I wasn't stopping. There was a lot of caffeine drunk at that time. I do like a coffee or 10. And anyway, so the labourer would come out and he'd do a full day, full 12-hour day with us, and then he'd go and I'd keep going. And I think it took us about 2 or 3 days to get all the carpet out. At that point, they then sent out the EPA people who did the swab tests, and that's when we found out about the E. coli. And
so you've discovered that you've been working in a totally contaminated site. What happened to you as a result of that, you and Carina?
That was not real fun. We both ended up with stomach issues afterwards. It sort of affected Carina more than it did me. I was basically wet for weeks. I had the same gum boots on. I don't even think I had socks on, to be honest. And I know the first time I took the gum boots off, I was like, oh, that was a mission. Because I was stuck on there pretty good. I had sores all over my body that wouldn't heal. And when I say sores, I mean just horrible looking sores. And so they gave me a couple of lots of antibiotics, which then clogged up my intestine because I couldn't go to the toilet. That's what antibiotics do. I was also taking some quite hefty pain relief due to what turned out in the end to be, I believe I ended up with 3 fractured ribs as well. So the fractured ribs came about from just moving stuff I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And they didn't pick up on that till a long time later. I also spent one weekend, I think I spent an entire weekend by myself. I ripped the gearbox out of my car. I rebuilt it on the bench out of 3 broken other gearboxes and then put the gearbox back in because I had to move the car. And at one point when I was rolling around on the car, I felt something tear in my groin. And I don't know what happened in there, but it's never been the same since. Something's moved inside and it's just stuff don't work like it was,
So it's pretty full on physically, doing all of this hard labor and trying to save it. Then you realise that the whole site is contaminated, so most of your gear, including musical instruments and stuff, is no good.
Yeah. Look, I lost a lot. Didn't really gain much, but a lot of experience, which wasn't ideal. It wasn't the situation I wanted to be in. The positive side to it, I guess, that I tried to take from it was I had a lot of stuff I didn't know what I had to do with it. I had a lot of my dad's estate stuff there. Well, I lost 90% of that as well. A lot of that I had no idea what I was going to do with it. And it was finding out the actual E. coli results. And when I say E. coli results, we failed dismally. It was predominantly E. coli. There was animal fecal matter. We don't have animals, bar the dog. They were telling us there was stuff like chicken crap and all that sort of stuff through there. We don't have chickens. I don't know where that came from, but it was quite heavily contaminated. And that's when we started reassessing everything else and going, well, we're not stuffing around this. We've got to get rid of it.
It's terrible, right? The idea that you are, you've got stuff contaminated. How did you get support at this time?
Once that sort of happened, we were at about the 2-week in mark where we began what became known as the Road to Nowhere tour. Which was my nightly updates for family and friends that I was doing on social media, just to let everybody know we were okay. No one really heard from us for a couple of weeks, and so I thought people need to know. My phone was ringing off its choppers, and I couldn't answer it because everything was wet, and we had stuff outside we're trying to dry, and it just kept raining. But there began the Road to Nowhere tour, where we were living in a glorified camper trailer, which became known as the Tent on Wheels.
Right.
So the 3 of us lived in there for 2 weeks, and that was our first month of the flood. So that entire time, I was working around the clock. The poor old dogs following me around everywhere, like a bad smell. Apparently, we all smelled bad. But the funny story, Johnny's people don't walk in and go, geez, it smells bad. We would ask, or does it smell bad? And I go, no, it's fine. And it's not till much later that you talk to people and they go, oh, it stunk. We could smell it from down the road. And it's like, oh, great. It wasn't, it was like at the end of the first month, they found Carina emergency accommodation. So off Carina and the dog went to the farm.
Right.
So they put her in a boarded up farmhouse that was about 15 kilometres away. So the journey into the farmhouse went a bit like this. I'd drive down the gravel road at night time past the swooping owls. Then I'd have to cross the gate and the cattle grid. Then after that, it was quite a muddy trail. And I knew it was only going to be a matter of time before I got bogged in there. But anyways, as you go down the muddy road, you'd have to go past the killer bee's nest. Then there was mud splash number 1. Then mud splash number 2, which was basically a spring on the top of a hill. And then you'd get to the old boarded up farmhouse, which had been boarded up that long. It was running rampant with rodents and snakes and bandicoots. People don't believe me there was bandicoots, John, but I assure you they were there. So I used to, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but I used to sit on the veranda up there in the evening shooting the rats with the slug gun. It's quite a humane way to do it if you do it right. It's better than baiting them. That's instant. I actually got sick of doing it. So one night there, I think it was the first night or second night Carina had stayed up at the farm by herself. They were just glad to have a bed, a roof, a floor, and a fireplace. So it was getting around 11:30 at night. I thought, I better go back to the tent on Royals where I was now illegally squatting. As I'm going out, I got to the spring on the hill, and that was as far as I went. The ute just bogged straight down to the chassis, and that's where that ute stayed for the night. It was at that point I tried to get the ute out, and doing what I could to no avail. And I thought, I've got to walk. I've got to go to work tomorrow. And yes, I was still working through a lot of this.
Wow.
It's like 11:30, midnight. I've got to go to work. So I walked back over to the farmhouse covered in mud, and I said, my ute's stuck. And she said, I know, I can see. So we went and tried to get it out again. Still couldn't get it out. I said, look, I've got to walk. Something's telling me I've got to walk. Luckily, where they put it was out the back of one of the coal mines, and there was security up there.
Right.
And something was telling me I needed to go, and I needed to go now. So off I've gone. She's going, you're mad. I said, I know, but I've got to go.
Yeah.
We had too much down at the other place. It was people getting around stealing things. So I had to get back there for security purposes. And as I started, I think it was about 1.5 kilometres, this muddy driveway, I could see the security car coming down the road, and I thought, oh, you beauty, this is meant to be. And I saw him pull up at the gate, and I've gone, right, I'll get my torch out and flash it. I've gone, oh, it's still in the ute. So here I am, I'm running down this road, middle of the night, and the only thing I had was a lighter. So I'm clicking this lighter, hoping old mate would see it, and I saw the lights. He swung around at the gates, and he checked to make sure that the gates were locked. And I saw him reversing back, and I thought he hasn't seen me. And I'm clicking this lighter, and I'm running as fast as I could, which isn't real fast. I've got a bit of arthritis, so I'm a bit slow nowadays. Anyways, at the last minute, I saw the brake lights come on, and he drove back towards the gate, and I thought, you beauty, he's seen me. So I got to lift back, and luckily I got another car to get to work the next day. But basically, the ute had to get pushed out with an excavator. That's how well bogged it was. That became my nightly thing. Every night I would I'd pull up at what I was calling home, which is the glorified 10 on wheels, which was pretty fancy, I reckon. It was that fancy, John. I even had some mates call up one night, and they've called in to see me. They, for some reason, didn't hang around too long. I was a bit feral looking. I smoked bad. I wasn't overly friendly either to anybody. That was my own personal rubbish going on there with what had happened to us.
Yeah.
And anyways, these dudes, they stuck around for about 5-10 minutes, and they're going, oh, we're going, we've got to go. And I jokingly said to them, oh, go on, piss off then, you blokes are just jealous of how I'm living. And we all had a laugh, and off they went. But I guess I tried to hide a lot of what was really going on with you. It doesn't work.
You talk about you're like not being good at that point, right? Like, so it's a pretty heavy impact on you. So you've lived apart, your house is it being cleaned? Are you getting support for that? How is it, how are you repairing the place you live, right? And you're living Carina's living out in the bush, and you're having to try and navigate between them.
Yeah, well, being married for many, many years, we hadn't spent a great deal of time apart, and this was a big learning curve for me. I had to fend for myself, basically. We had a lot of support from the neighbours. They fed us quite well for some time. I actually think I put on 10 kilos.
Wow.
There was a lot of cake eating. They cooked good cake.
So shout out to the neighbours for keeping you well fed. Good stuff.
yeah. These are the benefits of having professional cake makers as neighbours.
Oh, jeez, right.
Some of the cakes I've eaten were just delicious. And here was me prior to this flood. I was off the sugar and getting all healthy and that's all gone out the window now. And I do like cake, and they make good cake. But look, to be honest, John, I wasn't in a good place. I possibly went what I would call full-blown nuts to a degree. I still had common sense, though. I didn't do anything too stupid. I only bought one motorcycle because I thought I needed it. And that was simply to get in and out of the farm in case the ute wouldn't get in and out of there. Probably not something I really need a great deal now, and I'm not going to tell anybody that I need it. But basically what I was doing back at home at the old school was I had a production line set up of pressure cleaners and different cleaning stations. So anything that I did manage to save, which wasn't much, but it was a lot of the stuff that I saved wasn't even mine. I saved a bit of Dad's stuff. We managed to save a few good things. But I had a production line set up where our first port of call was bleach. I went through so much bleach. So if there's been, an up in the shares of bleach, if anyone's invested in bleach, no problem, anytime.
Good. Good on you.
Yeah, but I use a lot of bleach. So first one was bleach, and then I'd have another one. So then I'd get hit with a pressure cleaner. Then I had another detergent I was using, which was a disinfectant. Then my last one was a car wash and wax to just try and protect and salvage things because I knew it was going to be stored for some time. At this point, we were told we could not re-enter the house, as what happens with rental properties and leases. The second something like this happens is the lease is now null and void and torn up and means nothing. We were basically homeless. And that's, I didn't think I'd get to almost 50 and after it, I'm over 50 now, but look, I didn't think I'd get to almost 50 and be a homeless person who still had a decent job and it must feel pretty weird as I was getting out of the tent in the fancy blue shirt every morning and getting in the ute and going to work. And the house had to sit and dry out. In the meantime, I'd sort of go in there when I couldn't. I'd be bleaching walls and pressure cleaning. I pressure cleaned that entire premises from floor to ceiling numerous times. So if they had to come and swab again, it probably would have passed. They never gave that opportunity. They just got, here's the initial swab results, you're out. You cannot enter that premises. They let us go in there for about an hour at a time, and it was there was quite strict conditions around that, and it was only to get our stuff out. I kept looking at it going, it's not great deal of stuff. It's not going to take long to get it out of here. But one thing, one of the real estate chicks actually said to me at around this point when we became homeless a month after the flood, she said, it's going to take you at least 2 years to get back on your feet after this. And I actually laughed at her. I've gone, no, she'd be right. I'll be back on my feet in 6 months. It'll be fine. Wasn't she right? I haven't seen her since to actually let her know that. But look, this is a process. It takes time. Yeah. And it takes a lot of time, especially when you be stubborn and don't accept anybody's help. And on that, I think I wanted help, but I didn't. So people come to me and go, what do you want me to do? And I go, look, I don't know. I don't know. How do you accept help from somebody when you don't know what you need to do? So it became, I don't know, I felt like I was just sort of, I guess, running around bumping into brick walls.
Do you think that idea was really about your still being impacted by the stress of the whole thing, the flood, right? Because not knowing what to do, that's a fairly common response after a big event or trauma.
Definitely. Nothing could be further from the truth there. There's no set of rules around this. I like to say there is. There's all sorts of stuff online where you log on after a disaster, and it's all well and good if you log online. You've got to think to do that, and it's the last thing on your mind. The first thing that come to my mind when that water started coming into that house was, we got to get out of here. We've got to save ourselves because nobody's coming to do it for us.
Yeah.
And even Carina has said to me afterwards numerous times that if I had not have been home, she would have waited for emergency services before she left the house.
Wow.
Because we've certainly had the bushfires in 2017, 2018. That had quite a toll as well because we were constantly on bushfire watch.
Yeah.
We saw the Rural Fire Service regularly who would come around and check up, and they would do regular drive-bys around the community and looking at the fuel on the ground, and they even came and slashed particular areas as a bit of a preventative measure. We saw nothing like that this time around. And it's a shame because prior to this, I believe I think it was the 2007 floods, we had the SES come around and go, oh, now, this is going to do this, it's going to do that. And I said, oh, mate, yeah, look, it's all cool. We've got a hill behind us. If anything goes wrong, we're going straight up there, not worrying about anything. This time around, it happened too quick. 2007 was a slow flood. I can't remember the height to that off the top of my head. I do believe it got to possibly 9 metres at home.
That's
roughly. That was quite a substantial flood that actually hung around for a long time. It was a slow-moving flood, so the water sat in the park for days and days and days. And, of course, the one day I go to get the kayak out when I come home from work, the water's gone, which was quite a regular thing I'd do as the creek had come up. I'd get the kayak out. Not in this one. There was just no opportunity. It came in and out that quick. And it was the sheer speed of it. I think it even caught the emergency services off guard. They say they like to listen to local knowledge. My experience of that now is they will listen to you. I don't know if they hear you. I know if it had have stuck at what I predicted, the water would not have. It would have come into our yard. It would not have entered the house.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it went about a metre higher than they predicted, and even that, they actually have their data incorrect on that. They think it went to like 11.1 metres. It's a simple fact of 11.1 metres is when the data stopped reading us. That's when the monitor went underwater. But actually, from my measurements using the 2007 data point on the bridge and where high tide was in 2022, I believe it got to around 11.4, 11.5 metres. The importance of that, John, is what's happened is they have a particular data that says it got to this height and it got to here on the road. It's wrong. So they think at 11.1 metres it gets to that road. It's not. It's 11.4 or 11.5. It gets to the road up. And it'll actually cut off the Golden Highway at that point. It was about an inch off going over the road, just down from where we were camped. We even looked at having to possibly move where we were already camped. On that first night camp job, I'm going to give a tip here. Sausages and bacon on a campfire with wet wood are not ideal to cook. I couldn't get the fire hot enough. They were the worst sausages I'd ever eaten, but I ate them. I love bacon. And even this bacon was bad. Like, I think we threw it away, and it was like, it was just terrible. I don't think the dog was going to eat it. I think I ended up eating canned baked beans or something. And then one of the other neighbours, he actually came down at around midnight and gave me a nice plastic tub full of chicken, a packet of biscuits, and a thermos of coffee. And I'm a bit of a coffee snob, John, and I think it was only, like one of these freeze-dried coffees, but it was delicious. And, I stayed up all night watching that there too, thanks to his coffee. Some of this stuff I can never repay people for how they helped us out. Even, the places you go after that sort of stuff in your own head while you're battling this sort of thing, is first is that the panic and the shock of it just keep you going. So you don't really take in what's going on around you. And I found it wasn't too much later, even now when I look at some of these photos and I go, oh, lost all that.
Yeah.
And that's when it sort of hits home.
Yeah.
And you can still have moments where you just lose your crack and you got to go and sit down. And when I tried to return to work, I was starting to I lost all my social skills. I couldn't speak to people. I spent a lot of time in that tent by myself. Sometimes the battle was just making a cup of tea. Other times the battle was laying down because I was in that much pain from me body being broken and worn out. I'd then go and try and sleep. I couldn't sleep. So it's like, I ended up, I was taking a lot of Valium, a lot of painkillers just to try and shut my brain off. That didn't work. Some of the inappropriate things people can say. I was telling somebody about what had gone on with us afterwards, and somebody had overheard it and said, oh, and they'd actually said, oh, get over it, we're sort of sick of hearing about it. Well, that's really not appropriate. But I bit my tongue. And some of the kindest things people have done for me is one day I was sitting down, I'm having a moment, and having a really good, I was basically sitting out in the back on a step at work. My body was in agony. I was exhausted, totally, 200% exhausted. And I was just sitting out the back, there was water coming out of my eyes and stuff. It must have been raining,
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, John. And anyways, one of my co-workers who I've worked with for many, many years, he just walked up and sat down beside me and popped his hand on my shoulder and he just sat there. That is the kind of help and support that people need, not advice. It was a simple act of just sitting there with me, knowing that you're not alone. And then he, funnily enough, he's had his own issues as well. Nobody gets it easy. We all have, John, and it's how you work through it that makes a difference. He walked inside, so he's come into the office and he's walked back out where I was sitting and he just handed me a card. Said, if you want to talk to someone, mate, ring this bloke. And I did. Because, I'm a bloke. I thought I was tough enough to deal with this rubbish. I was tough enough to hide it. And I think that's all I did was I hid it. I hid what was really going on. I'm not sure if I actually got to this bit later, earlier on, but I spoke about changing what I would actually tell people when they'd ask about how we went. And I had to change what I was saying from we lost just about everything we own. And when I would see the look on their face, I thought, I need to change what I'm saying to people. So I actually changed it to, it's okay, we saved a few good things. And
so did that change its impact on you?
Not at all. I was lying. It was a lie. Well, yes, we managed to save a few good things. It's, you go around and you go, we've saved all the trinkets on the top shelf, but we don't have a top shelf to put it on anymore.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard. So we've still got stuff boxed up that we don't know if we'll ever come out of those boxes again. I've still got sheds of musical instruments that I don't know if they're okay.
So we've got you're still, working your way through this. So where are you overall?
Well, 2 years down the track, I'm still cleaning stuff up. I'm still pulling stuff apart and trying to fix it and put it back together. If it doesn't work, I throw it out. I thought I could save everything, I can't. I simply can't. So it becomes a time where you've just got to go, bugger it, it's gone. And some of the stuff that we threw out was quite substantial.
Yeah.
And some of it not. It's the little things like not so long ago, our son come to visit and we were sitting around at night time and we were talking about, believe it or not, handwriting of young people. They can't write very well. They text everything. So the handwriting appears to be a thing of the past. And I made the comment, well, actually, your handwriting was pretty good. I don't know if it was me that made the comment or Carina.
Mm.
And he's gone, no, my handwriting's terrible. I said, well, funnily enough, mate, I took about 3 paces and I reached onto the shelving in one of the rooms and I pulled out his kindergarten first handwriting book.
Wow.
And like he's in his mid to late 20s now, and that got him a little bit. Now, even on that, so he wasn't here through the flood event, but he's also lost stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of his childhood memories were there. And
Yeah.
one of the other things I actually found was, this one was more for me than for him, was when he was really, really young, every night we'd go to bed and read this dinosaur book. I found that as well, and it was okay.
Wow.
The other book, I think, was a shark book. It was no good, so we had to go. But it's funny the things you manage to save and the things you can't. And it's the things you can't when you find them. That's when you go through that entire loss all over again. And it's not just that one little item, it's everything comes back.
Yeah.
Everything. You go, oh shit, this is the situation I'm in. And I'm still in that situation now. So I've got cars I've got to fix up. I've got bikes I've got to fix. I'm still going through trying to save tooling because a lot of it just stayed in the shed because we went for survival, which was we've got to eat, we've got to sleep somewhere. And we did what we could. And I've ate a lot of food I don't really like because it was fuel. And, like, you just eat it and go, oh, that's horrible. I don't like that, but I'm eating it.
At this point, some of the practical things are moving forward, but you're still there. You're still working through the issues. So what's the future? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, I wish I had the answer to that, John. I think the future for now is to keep trying to save what I can and throw out what I can't. And it's certainly changed my outlook on life. A lot of things I used to think were important now are not. And I think the future for us, hopefully, is just to get through the other side of this, whenever that is. We don't know when that's going to be because we're still going through it. And some of the things people have done for us to help us get through this have been like mind-blowingly awesome. And I can't thank people enough for what they have done. Unfortunately, my short term with this is to try and get awareness to a lot of these issues as to why people like us got forgotten about. I think I've used that as a driver to push through and maybe still mask a little of what I really feel. I still now get times where I get exhausted from it and it is overwhelming and you've just got to stop. It was over 12 months before I even stopped. I just kept going. So I'd finish work and I'd go home and I'd work. Then I'd maybe sleep for an hour or two and then I'd go to work. Then I'd go home and I'd work. And that's all it was. It was just constant, unappeasing. It didn't stop. There was always something to do. There's still always something to do now. At the moment, I'm going through trying to save tooling. So stuff that sat in buckets of water for almost a month. The thing that flood water does is it carries not only contaminants, but it's quite corrosive due to the electrolytic value of the water. And like even the chassis of my old ute, it's going to take me a long time to get it good again because it's surface rusted. Some of my tooling, I'll pull out like the little containers, some of it's in tins, and it's just clumps of rust. You can't even recognise it as a tool.
Yeah.
I was very lucky with some things, like down in one of the back sheds, I actually had quite a substantial collection of musical equipment, and I lost most of it. But one of the things that it was okay, if the water had gone an inch higher, I would have lost it, was my dad's drum kit, which to me meant a lot. And it's funny, like with all the gear I've got, a lot of it didn't mean anything. And that drum kit itself, it wasn't mine, but it's what it was, and It's that sort of stuff, the sentimental stuff that gets you.
Yeah.
That's where it gets hard.
Mate, you've still got some hard roads ahead, just to, sort of thinking about the journey so far, and, as we wind up, the idea that, is there a lesson in there? Is there something that you can take away from this, or is it just about surviving?
At the moment, for me, well, yes, it is. So surviving, I believe, is the key to this. I don't consider myself a victim of a natural disaster. I'm a survivor of it. And I'll push through and I'll do whatever I need to do to get through this. And that's how I've gone at this. The whole journey, the whole road to nowhere tour has been about getting to the end of it, which, to be honest, I can't see the end of it. There's always something else I've got to do.
Might take a while, mate. It looks like you're on a road that's still going somewhere to nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
How do you feel about the place you live now?
At first, it was a little weird. It was like we walked back in and it's got all new carpet. It's all freshly painted. And it looks really nice. It's come up really good. It took 9 or 10 months to get to that stage, and they did a great job of it.
Yeah.
For a long time, though, it did not feel like home. It still doesn't, but it does. It's the oddest feeling. So, the place carries a fair deal of sentiment to me because we've had a lot of life experience in there. And looking at it now, yes, it's still home, but we know that's the area we're in, and we know this is what can happen now.
Yeah.
Historically, there has been floods through there before, they tell me. I can find some evidence that suggests it. I can find evidence that doesn't suggest it. I believe it has been through there higher. They told me the 49 flood went through higher. That I don't know. I've read reports on Trove where it says the school was in 6 foot of water. And I've also read in the same newspaper a couple of days later that it only got the doorsteps. I'm not real sure.
So
some of their historical data is incorrect, I believe.
So you're left with potential, it's home now, but, maybe you're a little bit more wary about things that are possible. So going forward.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I understand that. I just want to say thank you so much, mate. You have offered such a brave insight into what's going on. I really appreciate how well you've described what is just an incredibly tough journey, mate. And I just want to acknowledge that that you got through. You're doing great, and I'm really glad you could share that today, mate. Thank you so much for that.
And thank you for your time, John. There needs to be more people doing this type of stuff to bring awareness and help people. And that's the thing. If people want to help, the help's got to be appropriate. Sometimes it's not. And as I said earlier, some people can hinder and people can help.
I think that, the opportunity for all of us out of this is, the stories, the courage. We call it heroes because everybody has everyday heroes, mate. That's what we're talking about. So really appreciate it, Leith. And to you and Carina, all the best, mate. Cheers.
Thank you, John. I'd just like to actually finish this with, I had quite a lot of people call me some sort of hero through what we survived. I'm just an average bloke that was doing what he had to do to get through it. And I believe anybody would do the same to get themselves through the other side of it. Thank you again, John. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Mate, good on you. And I hear a lot of blokes who deserve a pat in the back say that. And I agree, but you did a great job, mate. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond the Deluge about the 2022 floods in Broke and the Hunter Valley. If anything in this conversation has had a triggering effect, please seek support and find someone who can help keep you safe. Please share the show to your friends, family, and colleagues so we can help more people with their recovery from natural disaster. If you'd like to find out more about Kintsugi Heroes and our other podcasts, please head to kintsugiheroes.com.au. Our theme song was provided by Colin Lilly. Thanks to Matthew Bliss for editing and production, and to John Millen for hosting the conversations. And most of all, thank you to the community of Broke and the Hunter Valley for sharing their lived experience with us. We'll see you next week in Beyond the Deluge.
Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. When it hits you in the middle of the night and the truth burns so bright. Only when it's broken. Only when it's broken. Take pride in those cries. It's only for tonight, and then you rise. Only when you're broken. Only when you're broken. Only when